All right, Walter, let's talk a little bit about squash. And I see you have some on the table for us to look at, right?
Oh, yes. Of course, everybody knows the yellow squash.
Right.
I mean, it's been with us for a long, long time. And basically, these yellow squash come basically in two different cultivars, I guess, if you want to use that word. You have what we call the summer crookneck, and also you have the yellow summer straight neck. And as you can see, the difference is that this is obviously, straight, and this has a little bit curve. Now, these used to really, the breeders have kind of bred the curve out, because think about it, in a store, they would break and all of that. It would be easy to break them. So really the crookneck is kind of getting straight, as you can see. So I guess somewhere some plant breeder has crossed these into these, and they're kind of getting that result as well.
Oh, these plant breeders, huh?
They're coming up with something all the time. And then, of course, we have our zucchini squash. You have these green zucchini, and you have a black zucchini, which gets very, 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 very dark green. Now, one thing I would like to tell people about squash is this. You need to pick your squash when they are probably about 5 inches like this. Because if you do not pick this plant when it's like this, come back 2 days later, and this thing is probably easily a foot long. And, therefore it'll be tough, and no one will want to use it. And I think they make zucchini bread with it when it gets to that point. Or you can feed it to the hogs if you got some hogs. Hogs love squash. Trust me on that. I like squash also. And then there's another squash that we see a lot in the stores called a little white squash, the little patty pan squash. It's kind of round. And some of them are kind of shaped a little bit like a sunflower, with the little ridges around it. And they're fun to grow also. They grow well here in our climate.
Okay. Now, what about the winter squash?
Yes, there are two different types. Obviously, today we was talking about the summer varieties. But yes, you do have the winter squash, which would be your acorn squash, your spaghetti squash, your butternut squash, and I'm sure there's some others. And those tend to grow well. We plant them more in the fall of the season is when, those tend to get planted to be harvested in the fall. But they are very delicious as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So what type of squash grows best for us in West Tennessee?
Well, pretty much the yellow squash, the yellow crookneck, the yellow straight neck, the zucchini squash grow well here in our climate. Also, the patty pan squash grows well. And those winter squashes I just mentioned, they grow all right in our climate as well.
Yeah, but if you're going to grow them, you're going to need what, Miss Susie? Space.
Yes, you need space.
Right. So what about that?
Okay. Well, basically, for squash, I like to have about a 4 foot apart on the rows, because they will put out and just spread all over the place. You have to remember they are a member of the cucurbit family, which include pumpkins and watermelons and cantaloupes. So these things love to get out and put out vines.
Yes.
That's what they love to do. And I also plant them about 2 feet apart in planting. So you have 4 feet wide as far as your row length, and then 2 feet apart per plant. And you usually can do okay with them that way.
All right. Then when should they be planted? Okay.
I like to plant them basically around from about May 1 throughout June. They'll be fine. The soils are good and warm to plant them. Now, obviously, you can plant them a little earlier if you use transplants. You can get them out there a little earlier maybe. And if you want to cover them up with, buckets and things like that, just in case we have some kind of late frost event or something like that. But basically, you can plant them all the way up through June easily, June 30th easily.
Okay. Now, we always talk about crop rotation, right, in our vegetable garden. So what should the cucurbits, specifically the squash, follow in that crop rotation?
Well, you really don't want to follow a cucurbit crop with another cucurbit crop, because those diseases, if there's ever a family that will be attacked by the same diseases and insects, it's the cucurbit family. So if you had watermelons in the spot, you wouldn't want to put squash there this year. But you would want to plant your squash probably in a place where you may have had corn last year, where maybe you had your green beans last year. You might want to put it there where you had your sweet potatoes last year. You would just want to put squash in those areas.
Okay.
And you'll be fine.
All right. Well, since you mentioned it, what about the major insect pests and diseases?
Oh, man.
Squash.
Now, I will tell you, squash has its enemies.
Oh, yes.
The cucumber beetle, the squash bug, the vine borer, the squash
Which is the one we hear about a lot.
Yes, that I would probably call that the number one pest of squash. And what you see there is one day your squash vines will just be beautiful and gorgeous. And then all of a sudden you come back the next day and they just like wilted.
Yeah, just
down
collapse.
to the ground.
Right.
Yes, and that's just where the squash borer has gotten in there and he's just bored all into that base of that plant and disrupted all those, the nutrients and stuff going up, and the plant dies. Now, another pest would be also aphids. And the reason that aphids are a big problem with your squash plants is because they carry that mosaic virus. And so if you see your squash vines begin to look like what they call that zodiac or whatever,
Right.
look real groovy. Hey, the problem you have there is really you have the mosaic virus is what you have, and it's not much you can do. It will even make the squash turn those colors as well, the fruit of the plant itself. So you have to really control your aphids to control that disease. And another big disease that they get. They will get powdery mildew, and usually your chlorothalonil products will clean that up and take care of it.
But if the virus is there, it's not too much you can do about that virus, right?
There's not much you can do about the virus. Just unfortunately, just pretty much pull them up and hey, better luck next time.
Wow.
But you have to control. That's why you have to control the aphids throughout your garden and throughout your landscape.
Right.
Because the aphid can be coming from somewhere else and transmitting that virus. To that squash.
So you wouldn't even eat that squash if it, of course, had a virus, would you?
Oh yes,
You would
definitely.
eat it?
Oh yeah, I would eat that. It would just be a psychedelic type squash that you have there. Probably be pretty in the skillet.
But it actually does look good when it has those little colors to them, right?
Yes.
All right. So look, how long though is that? Is the growing season for your squash?
Well, really, about 6 weeks. Once they start producing, and a key to really having a good productive squash season, growing season, is you really need to harvest them when they're like, again, 3 or 4 inches. You want to just constantly pick them, and they'll put on those new blooms, and the pollinators will be taking care of business, and you'll just have a pretty good supply of squash. And let me tell you, folks, it don't take much squash to grow a lot. I mean, they're heavy producers if they're in the right areas.
Right. So what? Just a couple of plants, you think? Be enough?
Easily. Yeah. I may say 4, maybe 4.
Okay.
And also, if you do not pick them whenever they're small, they'll end up becoming those big squash, and that just makes that plant spend all that energy trying to keep up that big fruit.
Right.
So that's kind of knocking off time on your harvest as well.
Right. All right, Walter, we can tell you like squash.
Oh yes, I love it. Hey, you can fry it or whatever, or boil it, whatever. I'll eat it.
All right. Well, appreciate getting information about squash.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. To find out more information on this topic, just click on the familyplotgarden.com link in the description.